And today is the first day of the plastering course. We're doing a crash course in plastering over a series of days. We're going to be posting a video every single day with one aim, to make sure anyone has the ability to learn to plaster. And today we're going to make sure we're going to get our walls ready for plastering. This is a wall that's already been pre-plastered, but we've got a hole in it accidentally. Don't know how it happened. So we've got a hole, got lots of ripples all over it, and it's a wall that's not really ready. So it needs some time, it needs some attention. Got a few little pit holes, got a few little bumps and dips, got a few little stripes. So I'm going to show you how to prepare any wall ready for plastering. We're going to fill this hole in. I'm going to show you which products to use for that. I'm going to make sure that by the end of today this is ready for plastering, but in a way we're not even going to use PVA, we're going to use something better. We're also going to make sure you're fully prepared for plastering. We're going to show you some essential trowel techniques before you even pick up a trowel to be plastering a wall. We're going to show you how to start using a trowel before anything else. So today's a big day and a perfect primer on how to get you started for plastering. The first thing we have to do is make sure the wall is fairly flat and we've filled in any holes. This is the first thing we're going to deal with. Now we need an undercoat plaster to deal with this, to fill the hole and to make sure that the area is flat. So there's two types of undercoat plasters out there. You want bonding. It's called British Gypsum bonding. It's an undercoat plaster, but it's designed for medium to low suction backgrounds. Now what does that mean? It basically means anything that doesn't have too much of a high suction rate. So for example, bricks, blocks, they have a really high suction rate because they're really porous. So it means if you put anything on like a standard plaster, it'll suck the water out of it and crack it. So if you see any cracking with any products, so say if it's render, concrete, a plaster, it's because the background has sucked all the moisture out of it. This is a medium to low suction background. It's a wall that's already been plastered before, which means it doesn't have a high suction rate, say as block work. So this is what we want to be dealing with. And 90% of the times if you're working on existing walls, you want to be using British Gypsum bonding. The other undercoat plaster is called hard wall. That is designed for bricks and blocks. That's designed specifically for areas that have an high suction background. You don't want to be using that when you're dealing with walls like this or holes like this. And this has got a bit of paper behind it. There's a plasterboard that's been exposed. So you want to avoid using hard wall on this because it's not designed for low suction backgrounds. It'll fail and it could potentially crack. Now another good rule of thumb is to scrape the walls before you start doing anything. So let me show you this. You might have a few bits where you've got a few little bumps, a few little blemishes. What you want to do is scrape them back. Give it a good scrape. You don't have to get it completely flat, but make sure that when you do it, you don't have any big holes or big bumps, because the plaster can't get over everything. You'll get over most, but you won't get over everything. Give the whole wall a scrape. And the other thing, if you have any cracks in your walls, you want to use this. This is scrim tape. It's self-tacky, so it's self-adhesive. You literally take it back and strip it onto the walls. Now I'll show you this later on in the course, but if you do have any cracks, use fiberglass scrim tape. This is a mesh and it'll stop the cracks from coming back in the future. So scrape the walls, then mesh. So I've mixed a little bit of bonding in a bucket. We're going to talk about mixing plaster specifically in future videos, where I'm going to show you how to get the perfect mix. But we mixed up the bonding, and the consistency we're looking for, we want it to be quite thick. So unlike the normal finishing plaster, you want a bit of substance to it. You want it to be thick, it holds its own on the trowel so it sits nicely. And then when you have got it, it sloops down, but it's got a bit of body. So give the hawk a bit of a shake. You can see it's still sitting quite proud. So rule of thumb, bonding is quite thick and it holds its own weight. If it's glooping around on a hawk, it's just too wet. So this is what we want to be using for filling in the plaster. Find your area you're working on. Fill it in. And then fill it back. Same, so if you've got any areas, I've got a few sections at the top where I've got a bit low. I'm going to be grabbing the trowel, filling in. Now don't worry if the wall looks a bit rough or the bonding doesn't look perfect. Look, it's going to look a bit rough, it's just a product. It's what the product does, it's not designed to be smooth. So we've filled the hole, we've got the edges filled, and on the hole, we've got the wall pretty flat. But again, don't worry that it isn't perfectly smooth yet. We're going to talk about that in a minute, and the product we use is going to get over that nicely. Bonding an undercoat plaster isn't meant to be smooth. It's meant to be grainy. It creates a key for the next coat, and it just gets it ready for the top coat plaster. Now a quick tip as well, just before you're about to apply the bonding, you want to be PVAing the areas beforehand. So that means when you put the bonding on, it's not going to go off too fast, it's not going to pull away, and it's not going to get damaged. So basically you just get PVA, you mix it with water, you want it 3:1. 3 parts water, 1 part PVA. Mix it up in a bucket and just literally paint it on the areas you want to bond before you start. Okay, now we've got the bonding mix. This is a perfect time to start practicing our trowel skills. As I said at the beginning of this video, we're not only going to be preparing our walls plastering, we're also going to be preparing ourselves. So this is what I want you to do. With the leftover bit of bonding, if you haven't, just mix a little bit more up, because this is crucial. And I'm saying this needs to be done before you start plastering. This is a thicker product, which means it's going to be a bit easier to start navigating, learning to use your trowel. So basically, we want to be learning first off to put our trowel and get the plaster from the hawk. So put a bit of bonding on your hawk, give it a little shake so it settles. That way it's found its bit of centre of gravity, and the gravity is pushing down on it now. Now what I want you to do is learn to take the plaster from the hawk, and what we're going to do is create a V. What we do is create a V. So with your trowel, bring it up the bottom of the hawk, pull it up, and then we're going to push against the plaster and then take it. This is called cutting the plaster. This is what plasterers do to take the plaster from the hawk, so then you can take a little amount, tiny amount, or you can take all of it. But basically what I want you to do is just practice taking the plaster from the hawk. Now I know this sounds rudimentary, but this is probably one of the biggest things beginner plasterers struggle with, and it is quite tricky to do at first, so put some overalls on because you might get it all over you. A hazmat suit like this, so if anything falls on you, you're completely covered. Get ready to get messy. Get prepared to be covered in plaster, and it's fine, everyone does it. Don't get embarrassed, don't get nervous about it. Get some overalls on and get dirty. We're going to do it again, look. That's sitting fast. We're going to create a V. Create a V, and you push your trowel against the plaster, and then you take it. That way, when you're pushing against it, it forces this bit of plaster on a hawk, it forces it down so it doesn't fall on the floor. That's really important. Now the other thing, every time you've done it, start again, recenter, put the plaster in the middle of the hawk, start again. Now next thing I want to practice is taking the plaster on the left side of the trowel, but then the right side. So once you've got the left side sorted, get it on the right side. And that way we can start putting the plaster on either end of the trowel. Now that's going to be important when it comes to plastering a wall, we'll go into that. But for now I just want you to practice doing them two things. So then eventually take all of the plaster and put it all on your trowel. Dump it in the middle, scrape it clean, get the edges and throw it back. So let me do that again. You take all the plaster, do the V, and then you take all of it, like that. And then hold it at a 90-degree angle, tilt the trowel, drop the plaster in the middle, take the excess from the little bit, throw it in the centre. So we've got 3 things I want you to practice. Taking it from the left side of the trowel, like so. Taking it to the right side of the trowel, like so. And then taking it all. And this is going to be the first steps to preparing you ready for plastering. Don't miss this step out. I know it might sound stupid, mixing a bit of plaster, you're not even going to use it, but don't miss this out. If you are a beginner and you're new to plastering, practice this a lot. Because this is probably one of the biggest things you'll slip up on. Applying the plaster and flattening after this is okay, but this is really hard because it's tricky to get the plaster onto the trowel. Trust me, try it for yourself, it's not easy. Okay, I've done the bonding, I've learned to trowel up, I've got my hazmat suit on. Now I've got to wait for the bonding to dry, the undercoat plaster to dry, and that's when we're going to start putting the primer on. So for now, wait for it to dry, and don't go on it when it's still a bit wet, wait for it to be solid, completely dry, yeah? And then we'll come back. Okay, so the bonding has dried. We're now ready to put the primer on the wall. And today I'm going to be using this stuff. This is Bondit Plasterer's Primer. Now, I know the labels all got off. That's because it's been in my van because I actually use it. This is like blue grit, what it should be. It's a pre-grit that goes on the wall. You basically roller it on, I'm going to show you that in a minute, and what it does is it completely primes the wall. Now the reason I'm using that over PVA, sometimes the problem with PVA, one, if you get the mix wrong, It's not going to fully control the suction of the wall. Again, this is so important in plastering. If you have a wall that's not controlled, in the sense it doesn't have a layer that's going to stop the moisture being pulled from the plaster, then it's going to make the plaster go off too fast. And that is one thing you really do not want if you are new to plastering. This is the stuff I'm using at the moment. I think it's brilliant. And if you are brand new to plastering, actually if you're a full-time plasterer, I recommend this. It's a great product. 10 times better than blue grit because it's not got a gritty texture. It's got a tiny bit of grit in it, but it's not too overpowering. It's a really good product to use, especially if you've got different backgrounds like bonding, leading to paints, so on and so forth. So it's simple. Here's all you do. Get your roller, just apply it directly to the wall. Go over the whole area, over the bonding, over the existing plaster. Used on any background, paint, Artex. You can even put it on tiles. I've used this in the bathroom. You literally just whack it on. And that's it. Your wall's primed, ready to go. We've used the bonding, we've flattened it out, we've filled the holes. And now we've used this plaster as pre-grit, which means plaster is nearly ready to go on the walls. Let that dry overnight, let it do its thing. Don't get on it too early, it's not worth it. Your wall is now ready for plastering, and you've also had a bit of practice on the trowel. This first day of the Plasterers Crash Course, which is a massive thing for us. It's the first time I'm going to be posting a video every single day. Tomorrow's video is the perfect mix in plastering, which is probably the most important thing you can ever do before you even pick up a trowel, is make sure your mix is perfect. So subscribe to our channel if you're new to us. Hit the bell button to make sure you're going to receive every video when it comes out. Again, it's going to be a new video every single day. And then eventually we're going to show you how to fully plaster this wall from scratch. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Leave your comments below. What do you want to see? What do you want to learn? And we'll make sure we'll get it in these next few days. Cheers.